Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to a video called American Reacts to Dutch Lifestyle. I do not know what are the differences between an American type of lifestyle and a Dutch lifestyle, but I guess we're going to find out. So let's check it out and comment, like, and subscribe.
Something that took me a little while to figure out is when you first hear Dutch, you know, they have a lot of guttural G's or CH, and that's, I guess, to our ears, or to mine at least, that was the first thing that hit you. You're like, wow, they're just clearing their throat the whole time, you know? So, you know, you're saying something like, goeiemorgen. You just hear the "g" and you go, whoa, what are they saying? But as I was trying to learn the language and got a little more familiar with it, I realized I'd say the hardest part for an American to learn Dutch is not necessarily the guttural part. Once you get that down, it's fairly straightforward. I would say it's actually the way they do their vowels.
Said as someone who already speaks it perfectly, apparently.
The way that, because especially a traditional American accent is kind of like, if you compare it to like those in the UK or something, it's a lot harder. You know, we just our R's, or we're like biting and kind of chewing on our words. Just to kind of give it an illustration.
I'm a little lost.
In the Netherlands, they round their vowels. There's more sounds like "o" or "oo" or I can't.
Oh, okay.
But they're just softer, and it's, you know, it's difficult to figure it out till you start trying. And once you get the basics of the language down, I spent 2 years trying to work on just the simple vowel combinations to get them just right.
Oh God, how long did it take him?
Still haven't got it perfect, but that, I'd say, is one of the things that sets you apart as an American. They hear you. You know, if you've seen the film The Best 2 Years. You know, they have one of the elders there. They just have the worst American accent you could possibly imagine. So, you know, he'll be like, "Goeiemorgen, mevrouw, mijn collega en ik," and it's just so hard, and like, just like he just rocks falling out of his mouth. Whereas when, you know, when a Dutch person says it, it rounds it off. It's "goeiemorgen," and it mevrouw, and they, you know, they do different things with their R's to just make.
I kind of get it.
And so that
natural.
We've gone on long enough about that, but that's basically I'd say the biggest difference.
Confronted.
And one of the things that catches most people up is those vowel sounds. The Netherlands used to be kind of part of France. They were conquered a few times, and they were French. They have a lot of French influence actually in their language. It is a Germanic language, but they use a lot of words that are just French.
Really?
And as you go further south into Belgium, the north half, again, even more French influence. The southern half of Belgium speaks French already. And so you can just see kind of the transition over the years. I forget the dates exactly, so I won't try to throw them out, but when they actually split, the countries did. And it just made a big difference to the development of the country. Heck, even the flag for the Netherlands is the same colors as the French flag, just reversed in orientation.
Oh my God, it's
true. They
true.
make a point to learn other languages.
I hadn't noticed.
Those coming in aren't really expected to know Dutch. They just assume it. They assume that you won't if you're a tourist. And like those coming from other countries, it's always a struggle to get them to learn, because I've met people from other countries, both in Belgium and the Netherlands, that have lived there for 20 years and they hardly speak any Dutch.
That's crazy to me.
You know, get a few simple sentences, not very well.
Living in a country for 20 years without learning the language, that's unfathomable to me. It's crazy.
Sad. Just because they don't necessarily need to. You can get around with English. You
have to learn.
Can't really integrate yourself in the society, but you can manage. And for them, that's good enough. And so it's just interesting to see how their culture is. I'd say if you really want to become a part of it or understand it more, you have to make a point to learn their language, learn the way they
culture.
Do things. I don't know. If you think of the Netherlands or Holland, for a lot of people that know stuff about it, that haven't necessarily been there already, you get kind of the image of, okay, what do I know? There's windmills, there's canals, there's, you know, wooden shoes, that kind of thing.
The clocks.
And that is, you have that throughout the Netherlands, but it's especially typical of Holland, which is a province. And especially North Holland.
Not throughout the country?
That's where they have Amsterdam. And that's where they'll have the vast majority of the windmills and the canals, and just that kind of the traditional old-fashioned culture, that kind of thing. And for me, that's what I served in Alkmaar, which is north of Amsterdam. The Netherlands is shaped kind of like, well, can't do it cameras like this, but like this, like a hand. You have an arm that goes up here, and the bay is in here, and Amsterdam's down here, and Alkmaar is just right up here, and it's definitely my favorite city of anyone that I've been to. It's beautiful. It has a similar feel to Amsterdam, but not quite as big, so it's more relaxed.
Oh, it's even smaller.
And they have, many canals that go through there in that area. It's kind of just a wetland. And then windmills all over the place. And they preserve the windmills as like historic landmarks.
Love
and
that.
They actually will have some people that live in the windmills. They kind of sign on that when they live in there that they'll take care of it, and they have to take some lessons. I talked to some people who did it.
You have to learn.
In that area, they have one day a year or a couple days a year where the public is allowed to go in and just tour it and just look around, and they'll tell you all about it.
It's just one day a year?
And that's just part of what they sign up for when they become molenaars. That's what they call it. And it's really cool. And that's also, they have in Alkmaar something called the cheese market, which tourists will come all
Oh,
over
the
to see.
cheese market.
It's like they dress up in the old-fashioned clothes, how they used to, because that was a cheese marketing area. They'd come together on the city square or the plain.
Is it one day a
and they
year?
And they just have big wheels of cheese and get them in carts, and they weigh them. And so they put on a big show for you, and then you can also buy cheese. And just the whole city center is just gorgeous. It's all old-fashioned building. They have a couple of huge churches.
It's very old-timey, I guess.
Protestant churches, I believe. And it's just gorgeous. So picturesque. Is that the word? And
Yeah.
there's so much to see there. Especially like me, I like nature, and I like just seeing the views. It's flatland, but they have trees. They have different waterways and stuff that you can go explore. You can bike through. And that's also in that area where you have the tulip fields. From
that's where they
Hilversum
are.
area, or not Hilversum, excuse me, Haarlem, which is just kind of southwest of Amsterdam.
Is that Harlem?
Up north, all the way to the tip of the hand, not the hand, but the
Is the finger?
arm of the Netherlands. They have tulip fields, and so about 1 month of the year, I'd say, because I served during the springtime in that area. 1 month of the year, you just have fields and fields of tulips. It's gorgeous.
Oh my God.
It's gorgeous
I would
to see.
love to
That's
see
also
that.
they have like a tulip garden there, Keukenhof. If you've seen the best 2 years, they actually have some clips from inside that garden, and yeah, babbled about that. But that is definitely, if you want to go and see Holland, if you want to go in, and they have museums, they have all sorts of places you can see, all within about an hour of each other.
This is incredible.
That's a place to go. In my
perfect for
opinion.
tourists.
That's considered North Holland, that province. All of that down to Amsterdam, and then when you get to like Rotterdam, that's South Holland, and they have other provinces as well. But it's gorgeous. They have wonderful people there, absolutely wonderful. And there's so much to do. There's just so much to see. It's great. So what the differences are in living in the Netherlands compared to in the States, I'd say one of the things that hit me most, one of the first things, is that the idea of, I guess, space is what makes the biggest difference. The Netherlands is very small. It's about a quarter the size of the state of Washington, which is,
That's crazy to me.
I think, less than that, because in the state of Utah. And
It's insane to me.
American mentality, especially in a lot of states where it's, you have your land and you have your area, and it's all very, not necessarily
Sectorized.
secluded, but separate.
Yeah.
Whereas in the Netherlands, they're very used to sharing space. And that's just, I'd say because of the geographic influence, it influences the culture.
It's sort of similar to how an only child will be very private about their own things, and siblings, and someone that has siblings is very used to sharing.
How they live and interact with each other. They're used to the fact that their house shares a wall with this house, and
with
this
the neighbor.
side shares a wall with this house, and that's very common. There are some freestanding houses, but the majority of the people they live in the cities. They share space. They don't have much of a yard. It's just a lot smaller, but that's normal for them. Also, distances. If we want to go anywhere, basically we drive
40
a car
minutes.
most of the time for the majority of people, especially out in the West, I'd say. But in the Netherlands,
The East as well, but yeah.
there's a ton of biking and a ton of walking as well. People also have cars, but it's very common.
But
if you
everything's
want to go
closer, I
shopping,
think.
You jump on your bike and they have like saddlebags on the sides, basically, and they'll go there and they'll shop for 3 or 4 days worth of groceries, and then just bring it home on their bike. They have a really good centralized public transportation system: trains, buses, metros, trams. You have one card that you can get that has a little electronic chip in it, and you load it up with money, and it works with pretty much every system. So you can travel from A to B, wherever you want, just checking in and out. Really straightforward, simple, and effective. They've got it down. I think because it's just smaller, it's easier to manage everything. They do a good job.
That's a really good point.
Because they have a lot of open policies, and they're also very fluent in English, I'd say the vast majority of people I talk to could speak fairly good English, at least, if not better. And because of that, a lot of companies will choose to, set up shop or set their headquarters in the Netherlands. So it's popular that way, especially in The Hague. There's a lot of political offices and everything where people come. And I'm not a pro on all that, but I know that it's popular in that way. So companies will outsource there. When you go shopping there, it's kind of your job to get most everything done. Where, for example, you bring your own bags. Most of the stores won't provide you with a bag. If you do, you buy each one. They're a little more thrifty that way. They also
to reduce plastic as well.
Just with customer service and stuff, you do a lot more yourself. I find, as for example, if you go to a restaurant, there they don't do tips like we do here. So it's just a little bit different mentality of how that works out. When I mentioned earlier about how they'll shop for 3 or 4 days or less. A lot of times their breads and different foods like that, a lot more fresh, less preservatives, so it'll go bad quicker. So they shop more frequently and they buy smaller amounts.
This is the best way.
We used to go to town and buy food for weeks, and come back
in bulk
in the van. But over there, it's just so much smaller, and the diet is also just, on average, they eat less, I guess you could say, than in American portions at restaurants. They serve you less, and that's normal to them. A lot of members and people I talk to,
I thought they were starving. It's just they eat less.
They've been to the States. They always commented on how huge all the portion size was. I went to get a drink at McDonald's and it was gigantic.
It is.
It's just the difference in the way it's developed. It's just not normal there to have huge portion sizes.
No, it isn't.
Comparatively.
That's a solely American thing.
What I love about them, just that I saw in my time there, is they work, especially the native Dutch people. They work really well in a society together. They all they do their part, and they're pretty conscious of the effect they have on the community as a whole. Obviously not everyone, but that's a general trend that I noticed. Just for an example, they do pretty well at recycling. That's something that they make a big point of. They have lots of facilities and different things to service that, and then they're just aware of people around them.
How do you affect
everyone
else?
They won't ever impose on you. Sometimes you might get the wrong impression that they're not friendly because they won't necessarily just strike up a random conversation all the time. But if you ask for help, they're more than willing to help you. If you need to find something or you just need help figuring something out on the street. I've had so many nice people, and then when you do get to know them, you have a reason to talk to them. A friend of theirs, they're so hospitable, really nice people, and they go out of their way to just. And they love sharing about the country, and they love sharing about just things that they love in the area.
I think most people are like that.
That have lived in the cities or the areas that they lived. If they lived there for a while, they're really aware of what there is to do there. Not only what to do, but just the history and the culture. They they feel a part of it. I think that also does exist in some places in the States, but I notice it's really prevalent there.
Yeah,
and it's interesting because it's such a small area, but just every area that they live, they love and they take care of it, and it for me that's something great to see. And they have art all over their cities, very interesting art. It's well groomed, well maintained, especially in the Netherlands, and it's just nice to see how much they care about it and will help you out as well.
Their space, yeah.
You've probably heard of the Dutch Indies, or in South America and some of the islands there. They colonized that in the 1800s.
Oh,
so
okay,
the
islands.
from over there, because the transportation, the different food products that they'd import. Also, they're definitely influenced a lot by other countries' foods. They have a lot of foreign recipes that they cook. In Indonesia, they had colonies there, so they have influences from there as well. So you have, like I say, I'm not an expert on exactly how much they got from there, but I've eaten a lot of Indonesian dishes while I was over there, cooked by
Really?
Dutch people, native people.
What are Indonesian dishes?
Also, the traditional Dutch plate, you could say, or the meal, it tends to be more, I guess you could say, more simple foods. They have a lot of potatoes and
Herring.
different types of vegetables. They have, you've probably heard this from other people, they have, dishes called stamppot. It's like a potato mixture. They'll throw in kale or sausage or carrots or whatever else and mix it
stew?
up. Really good. I like it. I'm a fan.
Sounds good.
They have, during the holidays, they'll have different festive foods. They have one that's called sugar bread, if I'm not mistaken, and it basically is just a really sweet loaf of bread with like raisins or something else inside, and in the center,
And cinnamon?
I don't know what you call it, but it's like a almond butter type,
Oh.
and it's just a big round, fills up the center of it, and so when you
Oh my God,
slice
it tastes so
the
badly.
center of your bread, delicious, really good.
The cinnamon
They'll
roll,
serve that. They also
Dutch.
serve something called oliebollen, which is kind of like a donut. It's just a donut. It's a ball of dough that they'll deep fry with powdered sugar, and they serve that during New Year's. It's tradition,
Oh.
that they'll buy a bag and eat them on the New Year's. They'll just set up little stands in the city, and you can buy them. Yeah, those are some of the festive foods.
Wow, this I hopefully I don't know because he mentioned serving. Maybe he's in the military. Hopefully, he stayed living there because he seems to really like the Netherlands. I think one of the things that just struck me, and I already made that comparison, but I think it's really apt. And the more he talked about the differences, the more I kept thinking about it. Yeah, I think it's really like that. I think for one, I think the whole, again, it's sort of the American mentality. I think is more as an only child mentality, as in they don't want to share. And again, this is me being super generalized. Obviously, it's not, and being in the sort of in the big picture, not necessarily, obviously, the speaking about specifics, or again, just generally speaking. I think Americans tend to be more the mentality. Again, it's more as an only child, as in they don't really care. They don't like to share. They're really, I think, protective about their own space because they're not used to sort of sharing space with other people. So of course your people are sort of more, this is mine and this is mine and this is my little place and this is mine, and you can't trespass and you can't do anything because I feel very protective about my own space. And I think in the Netherlands, probably the way he's describing it seems more as in we're all a part of this world, part of this family. We probably share rooms, as in when people have siblings, a lot of the times you share a room with siblings and with your brothers or sisters. So you're sort of more, again, you're more used to sharing. You're used to, hand-me-downs and things not being yours, and you're probably a little bit less protected just because that thing you have either belongs to someone else or you're going to pass this through your sibling. So it's more about you feel a little bit sort of less protected. Yeah, less protective about things in general. And you're probably more used to sharing. Whether that's, again, more, I don't want to share, but I think you kind of have to because either your parents make it so and you have to share or whatever. But I think it's probably a little more like that, and it's a little bit more ingrained into them. And something that really did struck me was how he mentioned in Dutch people tend to be more, or I think Dutch, or maybe yes, Amsterdam. I think it was more about specifically not just Holland and all throughout. I think the Netherlands. It's more about how I think they feel that they are part of a community and they feel like they are part of this. And your city is not just a place, or it's not whether that is your neighborhood, your city, your whole sort of region. You take care of it because it's as if, I don't know if it's with your house. You have to take care of your house because it's yours. And again, there's this sense of belonging, I think, and how it affects, how I have to take care of. I have to take care of my street, or I have to take care of this because, I am a part of this. And if the city's wrong, then probably I'm going to be wrong. I'm going to be affected by this. And also, I think that whole sense of community of what am I doing, and the things that I'm doing are going to affect someone else, and they are going to affect my neighbor, and they're going to affect my community. And if the community, and if something goes wrong or someone's wrong, someone, I don't know, someone it's having, I don't know, again, it's just generally in broad terms. If the community is wrong and something's wrong within the community, then I'm not going to be thriving because my community is not thriving. And I think that's really the main difference between between in the United States, because in the United States they tend to be more individual about things, and they probably feel less of a you feel probably less of a connection with your community because people are a little bit more closed. And I think it's really interesting because I think, again, broadly speaking, I think people tend to believe, oh, Americans are friendlier, are probably more open, and people get a sense that in Europe people are a little bit more closed or they're just less friendly. But I think maybe that's just, when socially, I think when speaking with other people and again, just sort of socially, but I think when it boils down to, I think, the mentality, I think really it's a conundrum, right? I think it's just, it's a thing. It's really the opposite. I think they kind of switch places, and I think that's really interesting because, and he said, they don't necessarily, it's not necessarily that I think in the Netherlands we're just less friendly. It's that you're probably more used to, I think, an American type of lifestyle in which everyone's going to smile at you and everyone's going to strike up a conversation. And I think they're a little bit more close, I think, in the Netherlands when it comes to that. But like he said, of course, that's just with strangers. And it's just because, you have to, they're not going to go and I don't know, greet you unprompted or, I don't know, bother you unpromptly because probably they're thinking, because that's their culture, if I strike a conversation with you, I do small talk, I ask you something, maybe that's going to inconvenience you. And again, you're thinking more about the community and what I am doing affects someone else. And because obviously Americans they don't really have that mindset. So of course they're not really thinking about this as, if I greet someone or if I strike up a conversation with someone in line, I'm queuing for something and I strike a conversation, I'm not thinking, and people are not thinking, am I going to inconvenience them? No, because that's really nothing that really is not something that really crosses your mind. But I believe maybe that's where it stems from, the whole sort of that difference. And again, it's just different. Both cultures feel about this in a different way. But I think that's probably where the disconnect comes from. But at the same time, of course, if like he said, if you ask a Dutch person for help because you're speaking up and you're saying, hey, I need help. I'm lost. I don't know whatever you want to ask them. Of course, they're going to be super helpful. They're going to be, of course, what do you need? Because it's not about them being unfriendly or just bad people. It's just about, no, I'm not going to go at you unprompted. But if you really ask your help, if you raise your hand and be, hey, I have something to say, of course they're going to give you, they're going to give you the floor. They're going to be, sure, let us know. What is it? And I think that's one of the key, differences when it comes, I think, to lifestyle and cultures, which I think it can be really hard to adapt either one way or the other. I think it's really hard for Americans to adapt to that lifestyle and for Dutch people to adapt to the American lifestyle. It goes both ways. But obviously, I think once you're gonna get, I get it, I understand this, and I get where people are coming from, I think it's just easier to sort of understand those differences and again, you put yourself in someone else's shoes and be, okay, I get it now. I understand why these people are like that. And I think that was obviously the other thing is just the shopping. It's really funny, and obviously I think the shopping also goes hand in hand with the whole method of transportation thing, because if you're obviously in the United States, usually obviously you need a car. People are now used to sort of walking around and using public transportation because that's simply not a thing that exists in a lot of cities. But it's really interesting how we mentioned, because I'm used to, and I think that goes hand in hand with, we have to shop for, because everything's not, everything's within, not within walking distance, which simply do not have stores, and there's no public transportation. We need to have a car. And besides, I think the distances are just greater and bigger in general. You're still going to need to drive a really long time in order to get to the store. So of course I'm not going to drive 1 hour to go there, 1 hour back to my house. I'm not going to do this every 3 days, and that's why people buy in bulk. Like he said, you're just buying packs and packs and packs of stuff at Costco. And that's the difference. I think that's completely unheard of, I think, in the Netherlands, because they everything's within walking distance. The distances are just not that great. If you drive for 1 hour, you're probably going to be in a different city, you're going to be in a different region, And whereas in the US, you can drive for 1 hour and you're still sort of within, no, maybe between the city, but you're still in the same state, you're still in the same region. So that's, I really think, of course, they're going to they're going to feel about this so completely different. It's no, why would I drive 1 hour? It's because you kind of have to. There's nothing nearby, so that makes it so that I'm not going to go, I'm going to make the trip 4 days a week in order to buy my weekly groceries. And of course, in the Netherlands, no, of course, you're only people, people like he said, you grab your bike and you just sort of go. And you're constantly going to the store. You don't have to buy in bulk, because why would you? I don't even know. Do people in Europe are there stores in the Netherlands that do things in bulk, as in Costco, for instance, or even, I don't know, just go to Target. Well, not Target, but I think Costco, because this is the most famous one. But is a similar store exist? Does similar stores exist in the Netherlands, or is it no? It's impossible to buy things in bulk. You just completely unheard of. That's not done. We don't really sell this. I would love to know, because I think that's a really a major difference as well. Yeah, but I love this, and again, like he said, it's not one's better and the other is worse. It's just different, and that's it. And if you're in one of those situations in which you live, in which you're a Dutch person that moves to the US, or vice versa, you're just going to learn to adapt. And again, put yourself in someone else's shoes, and then you're going to understand where they're coming from. And it's just different, and it's not, you have to keep in mind, it's not just better or worse, it's just different, and that's it. But that was it for today, and I'll see you next time. Bye!